move too far, I guess, from Akron to Youngstown. I mean, what sold you on coming here? Obviously, with the coaching change in Akron, did that make it a little bit easier?
Well, that made it easy. Obviously, being let go at Akron, I was looking for a job, and Eric contacted me early through the process when he was getting involved and when he took over, and obviously there was a mutual interest there. He was very willing to wait a few weeks and see what was going to happen with me and my situation at Akron. But I was very excited. I've grown up in the state of Ohio and following really what Coach Tressel had done here when I was at Chattanooga, getting a chance to see those guys at the same level. I knew what kind of program this has been throughout the years, and so it made it exciting for me to have a chance to not have to move, and being close to where I was very important for me and my family situation, and having a chance to come to a program where I think you have a chance to win a national championship. And I think a lot of people around the country feel like they have a chance to win a national championship, but how many people truly have a chance? And I think this is one of the places where year in and year out you can compete for a championship.
The quarterback spot obviously is the most important on offense, and they lost a good one last year in Summers. Where do you stand there right now? I mean, have you kind of looked, or are you looking?
Well, I really don't know where we are quarterback-wise right now. We've got 4 young men that we're going to look at in the spring. We've got a freshman coming in that we signed. There's really only one guy on the team that has any experience at all. But I think there's some talent there. And I think it's going to be just like any other position. Until we get out on the field, we really don't know what we have. There are some good returners back at each position throughout the offense from last year, but there's not a whole lot of depth. That was one of the things that we found out when we started looking at our personnel was, I think we've only got 2 scholarship tailbacks right now in the spring. That's why we signed 3. There's only a handful of receivers right now, and there's only a couple that have played. So that we've got to really find out what we've got there. It's going to be hard for us to line up in a 5-wide empty set the first day. We hardly have that many. So
how important is this spring practice then for you? Because with the new staff, you're not familiar with this personnel as far as seeing them in person. How important are these 15 practices coming up?
Well, it's going to be very important for us. First of all, we've got to find out what we have. We've got kind of a blueprint of what we want to do offensively, but until we get in there and see what we have, I don't think we'll be able to put the finishing touches on it. And as we go through, we've got to be able to find depth at each position and realize that there's going to be some freshmen or possibly JCs or transfers that are going to come in and have to help. So I think it's going to be very important. I think first of all we've got to stress fundamentals. That's where it starts. We've got to stress fundamentals from day one. See what we have. Try to put in what we want to do, then ultimately it's going to be, it might take us into fall camp to really realize what type of offense we can be and what we want to do.
What is that basic blueprint you just talked about for the offense?
Well, I think first of all, we've got to be able to run the football. We're going to be on paper, people are going to probably look at us and say we're a spread offense, which is what we'll be, but at the same time we want to be very multiple in what we're doing. We want to be able to use 2 tight ends at times. We want to be able to use the fullback at times. But again, until we see what we have, that will slow us down a little bit. We want to be a team that once we run the ball, we want to be a heavy play-action team. I've always been a guy that likes to throw the football, so we've got to find ways to throw the football. But we want to be balanced. I think as an offense, to say that you want to line up and run 40 times and throw 40 times, I don't think you can say that until you get into a certain game. But I think if we can get into our games next year and be an offense that does what we want to do, when you become one-dimensional, that puts a lot of pressure on that one part of the game that you're doing well, and it makes it tough when you go against defenses. So we've got to be balanced. We've got to find ways to run the football. We've got to find out who our best playmakers are offensively to make sure we get them the ball as much as possible. And we've got to see what the offensive line can do. We've got some starters back at those positions. We've got to find out if we need to leave guys where they are, if we need to move guys around and see, really who our best 5 offensive linemen are, and maybe find a 6th, 7th, and possibly an 8th guy and see what they do best. They might be are they a zone type scheme? Does that fit what they do? Do we have guys that can pull? Do we have guys that pass block really well? So I think until we get out there, it's hard to tell what we're going to be eventually.
Coach, you've spent some considerable time in the MAC, and a lot of people around here sometimes get into the discussion of, hey, you gotta out recruit the MAC schools and separate yourself. MAC football versus Missouri Valley Conference. What do you think? What separates, I guess, or how do you overcome that, or what's your take on it?
Well, until I get in this conference really deep, I mean, I know about some of the programs, but until we get into season, I start really looking at personnel and scheme-wise. It's probably very similar to the comparison between MAC and a Big Ten. When I started at Miami in 2001, there were some differences. When I left last year, I don't think there's that much difference in those two those two conferences, and I probably feel the same way going from MAC to a high level 1AA FCS conference. There might be a little bit more depth, there might be a little bit bigger linemen, but I think week in and week out, if we lined up some of the best teams in our conference and played some of the MAC teams, it would be very competitive. Can you do it week in and week out? I don't know. That might be tough to do, but I think if we lined up against some Mid-American Conference teams, I think we'd feel really good going into those games.
And I guess to follow up, how do you sell that to kids? I know that we got a long road to go here, but how do you sell that to kids?
Well, I think you just you got to find the right kids for your program wherever you are, and I don't think you can get into who kids are getting recruited by. We got to go find the best kids for our scheme-wise, both offense, defense, and kicking game. And if those kids are getting recruited by the 1A schools and Mid-American Conference schools, we've got to sell them on what Youngstown State brings. You might have a chance to play a little bit earlier. Obviously, we've got to sell our depth situation. I think we can sell. We've got a chance to win. It's been a part of our history and tradition. If they look at it, you've got a chance to win. You've got a chance to win championships. You've got a chance to go to the playoffs, and you got a chance to compete for a national championship. And I know a lot of schools around the country sell that, but if you look at us on paper, we realistically have a chance to do that. And we've got to sell those kids on being a part of something special. Even though we're coming at a time where Coach was let go, this program's still been pretty good. We are taking over a 6-5 program, so we're taking over a program that has had success in the recent past, and we just need to build on that.